This is Movers and Shakers, where we interview the upcoming generation of Make It Happen multifamily investors to share their story.
Welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast. My name is Gino Barbaro, co-founder of Jake Gino, multifamily investor, educator, father, mentor, and I am joined by my co-host, my brosif, Joshua Ryan Rusin. Mr. Rusin, how are we doing today, bro?
Gino, excited, man. Locking down some things for an upcoming money mixer we have in March in Orlando. Very excited to tour a $300 plus $52 million deal that a friend of ours closed on. And Gino, what's most exciting about this? They did a 4% acquisition fee. So if you look at that, that's over $2 million day one. Now, obviously, newer investors don't start out there, but it just goes to show you if you stick with the long term, the power of that. And really excited to get the Jake and Gino community together, that hands-on in the field experience, that networking, and seeing the systems and tools you're learning in action. Man, I just cannot wait. Gino, what are you most excited about?
We just had the boot camp this past weekend. 70 Jake and Gino students were there talking about the buy right. That's the first leg of the framework. But what's exciting is there's two other legs that we always discuss upon. But it was exciting to get 70 students out there. It's amazing what you don't know. But when you go to these boot camps, you start learning a lot of the techniques and a lot of the strategies, different ways to buy assets, different strategies, what makes a deal, what doesn't make a deal. These are all the things we're learning about. And today was our first State of the Rand Fam webinar to our entire community, to our entire employees, which was great because the Rand Fam has grown, right, Josh? We have the honeybee, and it's really multifaceted now. We have the education part, which is Jake and Gino. We have the Rand Partners, which is for the investors. We have Rand Property Management, we have Rand Capital, and we have Rand Cares. So to keep that whole symbiotic relationship, we just had a great webinar for our entire employee base, just letting them know what each arm is doing of the business. And it's all about communication when you get into business, about letting what Jake and Gino are doing is how is it affecting the Rand Property Management team and how we can grow together. So it was a really exciting webinar this morning.
Love it, and super excited to be a part of this. Actually, let's transition to today's guest. Super excited about this one. Today we have Chad King. A little bit about him. He's a full-time real estate investor, started in college as a finance major, and then went from there doing sales for Xerox, where he was crushing it. After studying successful people, he realized that real estate was most of their portfolio and how they got there, and not wanting to wait 10, 15, 20 years to really climb the corporate ladder and use real estate to shortcut that. He actually quit in 2017, went into real estate full-time in January, where he really started wholesaling, and he learned some of the school of hard knocks, but he was committed and made it happen. All the way to last year, he did 168 deals in 5 different markets. And these are wholesales, rehabs. Now, after building up that transactional income, he wanted to use multifamily to really grow his wealth and cash flow. Started studying that about 18 months ago. In July of last year, joined the Jake and Gino community. And then 3 months ago, he closed on his first deal. And I'm super excited to get in the story of this one and the whole thing. Welcome to the show, Chad.
Hey guys, thanks very much for having me. Humbled to be on. Excited to talk life and real estate.
All right, Chad. So I went over your story there on a high level, but there's a lot of gaps and a lot of good pieces in it that you can really help me color in. So let's talk about why you wanted to study finance and how you got into Xerox and then the transition to real estate and why. I mean, you were crushing it. Who leaves a job where they're making it happen and one of the top sales guys there?
Yeah. So I'll start with the finance major. I learned, I was very interested in the subject of money, right? I wanted to understand how money worked. I realized that the people, and this was in college, I realized that the people who had control had money, and the people who were able to give and be generous, they all had the money, right? So I was obsessed with this subject of understanding how money works. So I thought, hey, I'll get a degree in finance. Little did I know, a degree in finance teaches you actually very little about actually how money works, right? It doesn't really teach you about how to use what's good debt and bad debt and how interest works and all that stuff. So I come out of college with a finance degree and get into a sales job because I understand that I can write my own checks in a sales position. Okay. And then do that for a little while and realize, man, this is going to take a while. And I got a long ladder to climb, like you mentioned. So ultimately it was like, I gotta shortcut this thing. So I quit. I was engaged to my fiance at the time. It was December of 2016. And I said, babe, we're going to make this real estate thing work. I'm not sure how we're going to do it, but we're going to figure it out. And she was like, I believe in you. You know, I had $10,000 saved up and I was like, I think this is a lot of money. Like I can do so much with this. And, that went went through that very, very quickly when I got started. Ended up in some pretty significant credit card debt as I was funding the business in 2017. And it ultimately took me about 6 to 7 months of just banging my head against the wall. I was trying different things, and I'm sure there's some listeners that can relate. Like, I got into real estate, but I didn't know what to do. So, that's a scary time going from, a 6-figure earner at Xerox to immediately zero income and having to figure it out. So in retrospect, one of the biggest mistakes that I made, and we're going to talk about this on the podcast, but is I did not get a coach. So I was just trying stuff. I got my license, like I was doing commercial tenant rep. I did some like real estate photography thing. I didn't know what to do. I just wanted to be in real estate. And after about 6-7 months, I found that niche in wholesaling, started doing a couple deals, and then ultimately leveraged some partnerships to then scale and grow. So I'm involved with an organization called Blackjack Real Estate. And getting involved with getting into a vehicle with someone who is willing to put their foot on the gas pedal as fast as you want to, it can be just as effective as trying to create the wheel yourself. So there's a lesson there that you don't necessarily have to recreate the wheel, right? You can get into a vehicle that's already going. And as long as you trust that person, trust the other people that are in that vehicle with you, man, you can go further, faster together. Right. And so that's kind of what we did. And now we're, you mentioned it last year. We're in 5 markets now. And last year we did 168 deals. Those are wholesales and flips. And we're shooting to do a lot more this year. So we've really scaled up. And and then obviously I got the apartments on the side, trying to get out of that transaction land and get more into the equity, which is going to create that wealth for us.
All right. So there's a few things I want to dive into here. 1, 3 to 4 months in, it's like you said, you're in credit card debt. It's looking really bleak. This is when most people throw in the towel. I want to know how you pushed through, why you didn't go back to corporate America. And really, if you could go back and talk to yourself then, or someone that's in that position right now, what advice would you give them?
Oh man, that's a great question. I'll be honest. I thought about quitting almost every day. Every day I thought about going back to Xerox, just because I had a client base. It was like easy money. I was like, what am I doing here? I'm just a puncher, man. I'll be honest. I knew that every day if I get up and I just keep punching, eventually it's going to fall down. There's a quote, I think Eric Thomas said it, like, if you punch an oak tree 1,000 times in 1,000 different spots, you're not going to do anything. But if you punch an oak tree 1,000 times in the same spot, you're going to make a dent. Like, eventually it's going to come down. So I just knew that if I just kept trying things and I just kept punching, eventually I would find the hole. In the marketplace, it rewards persistence, right? When you resign from a corporate position and say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, right? That's a lot of times where people get that high, like, I'm an entrepreneur, but then the market will just punch you right in the mouth and just let you know that, like, this is not easy. Just because you say you want to be an entrepreneur doesn't mean that the market owes you anything, or that the space is going to give you anything for free. So it was just a lot of like little actions done consistently every day that I knew and trusted the process was going to get me the results. So it was tough.
So what I find really intriguing is when you first started, you didn't get that education. And I did the same thing in my journey. And I was always asked, and I always ask people, do you need to make money and then go to the seminar and get the education, or do you need to go to the seminar and the education and then make the money? Can you give me your case of why you should actually go to the education first, get into debt, and then start your journey?
Yeah. So in retrospect, I wish that I had, instead of taking that money and trying marketing campaigns to try stuff, I wish that I had just put it all into coaching, and it would have just cut my learning curve, right? Because when we talk about coaching, I got into this space January of 2017. And like, I've accelerated a lot of growth because of coaches and mentors that, I've condensed probably 15 years of experience into 3 years just because of that one thing, Gino. And, there's a couple things you mentioned. You can it depends what you have as your surplus. Do you have time or do you have money? Right. And if you can either seek to serve or you can pay to play, as Gino likes to say.
It's my boy Josh Rosen. That's the oak tree right there. He taught me that line, and it's like, wow. That just says it, right? And it's important, everybody out there. There's one of two ways. You're either going to go out there and add a tremendous amount of value. We had a podcast with Pat Hyben. Go out there and what can you do for your mentor? Do you have $500 where you can donate to his charity? Because that's what mentors, they don't really maybe need the money. Can you go out and help him underwrite deals for nothing? Give a ton of value. That's important, everybody out there. If you're going to be on there with a high-level person like Grant Cardone and take some time from him, what do you do? Grant, I love you. What charity can I donate money to? Or whatever that may be. Grant, what can I do for you? And then in return, you're going to get something back. So I don't want to cut you off on that, but it's important that everyone has to understand that concept because people who are super successful love to share. But at the same time, their time is so valuable and is worth so much money. And for us that are trying to grab up and reach up, let's think of how we can help them out. And this ultimately is going to help you out. And pay to play. If you don't have that, you're really super busy like Chad is doing 168 deals. Everybody, that's an average of 3.5 deals a week. Most people can't do 3.5 deals in their lifetimes. He's doing that in a week. So does he have time to go out there and maybe seek out a mentor? No, but he has time to go out and actually pay for his investment to and the thing is, when we say pay to play, I don't want to think of it as you're paying for something. You're investing your money into something, which is yourself, which is the biggest ROI. Because once you learn a concept, we're going to jump into what Chad did on his first deal. That ROI is infinite. Now Chad can take those skills and he can apply them to the next deal and to the next deal and to the next deal.
Whoa, before we dive deeper, I want to build more on this foundation. Chad, why is time more valuable than money? And why does the average person hoard their money rather than letting it go and come back with a return?
Yeah. So the average person, the problem with the average mindset, that's obviously that, the epidemic in society is that like, that money is actually something and it's not anything. It's fake, right? So it's money is fake, right? And you need to use money to, number one, you need to use money, to invest in yourself, like Gino was talking about. That's the first investment you should make. There's people that ask me like, hey, I have $5,000. Where can what can I do? Like, dude, first off, $5,000 is nothing. So is 10. Like, you need to put that money back into yourself first to cut your learning curve, to save yourself time, right? You look at it this way. If I read a book a week, right? And let's say I start at 25 and the average person reads one book a year and I'm reading a book a week. It's going to take that person, right, 25 years to accumulate the same knowledge. If we assume the same knowledge retention, it's going to take that person, 25 years to accumulate the same knowledge it takes me to accumulate in one. You can, by taking action and by using money as leverage to gain knowledge, right? You can shortcut time and basically fast forward a bunch of experience and leverage other people's experiences, because time is definitely the most valuable asset, right? It's the only thing people can't control. And you look at the richest people in the world and the one thing they cannot buy is time. And I have been, over the past couple of years, your time gets more and more valuable as you start to learn these concepts and you become more like, now my time, I don't spend any time. I don't waste any time now, because I'm spending it in my 5 buckets, right? My health and fitness, my marriage, my business life. And if I'm not doing one of those things, then I don't do it. It's not spent watching TV. It's not spent, just BS and playing video games, because we don't have, it's running out, man. I got a little hourglass back there just to remind me every time I come in my office, man, clock's ticking, right?
I love that. So a good way to illustrate this is, let's picture and imagine in 5 years you hit your goals, right? Whatever those are. But instead, maybe we find someone who has the results you want, that like, and trust, and has been able to replicate that with other people. And they're able to get you there in 3 years. So saving 2 years of your life. And the real question is, what do you value 2 years of your life at? Like Chad said, time is the only asset. You can't get more. You want more money? Go work hard. Learn a skill set. You can have unlimited of it. Time, no can do.
Yep.
So
couldn't agree more.
So Chad, you join the platform in July, you get a deal 3 months later. That's not typical, but one of the things that stands out is that you had a business mindset, and it wasn't because of the money, because we're going to go into the deal. The money didn't help you with this deal. It was the creativity, it was the entrepreneurial mindset, and it was also the mentorship. So let's go into the deal. Let's talk a couple of things of what you learned through the Jake and Gino community that helped you with this deal. I was like, wow. And talk about the struggle you had where you had 2 other deals before this one and you actually didn't go through those deals.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we get into the deal, kind of what you'll see is like the way the deal was looking, and I didn't have the way that the deal was looking. It was like the way that we had to structure it. We had to get very resourceful. And that was kind of a theme in my story. It was like when I was struggling in the beginning, like I had to be resourceful, and resourcefulness is a tremendous quality if you can generate it, right? That's why you see the people that inherit a bunch of money, right, tend to either waste it or they don't know how to multiply it because they don't have that resourcefulness. So, when we get into that deal, you'll kind of see like we had to be very resourceful with how we got the financing and what we did. To start though, I'd been studying and underwriting deals for probably 12 months before I got that coaching. But I wanted to get the biggest mistake I made when I got into wholesaling was I didn't have the coach. So I was like, I'm not going to make that mistake again. Right. So I knew I wanted to be in the apartments, and I was studying underwriting deals, and getting into the coaching platform was finally like, okay, I've gotten the wholesaling business to a point where I can at least take a little bit of a step back and focus some time on the apartments. And first thing I did was got a coach because I learned from my mistake, and got involved with you guys, learned a ton right away, went to a boot camp, really started putting the pedal to the metal when it came to how many deals I was underwriting, how many properties I was walking. So I was walking deals on the weekends. I was underwriting deals at night. And ultimately, this was the property that we're going to talk about, the 14 units, was the third one I had under contract. And the first two one was a 32 unit. The other was an 18 unit. And my coach, who is Bill Ham with the community, he actually shot holes in these 2 deals that I had under contract, and it allowed me to avoid probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in mistakes.
How much?
So I would say at least 100,000. I mean, it's tough to say.
$100,000 lost today. And not even that, the pain, and I can talk to this specifically, of buying a bad deal. What does that do to you? It sucks the life out of you. It'll tell you, you know what, multifamily is not the way to go because it's so risky. Look what I've done. So if you're on an island by yourself, and I can attest to this, I owned a deal for 10 years that just sucked the absolute life out of me. I would pick up my phone. The property manager was calling. Every time I saw that, it just took energy away from me. And it took that hourglass that Chad's got back there. It took time away from me. And it's not the money that I lost. It's just my energy, and it's just the ability to grow my business and being stuck in that rut. So I didn't mean to cut you off on that. I'm sorry, but that really has to be important. We preach no deal is better than a bad deal. Right? And it's hard, and it's patience, persistence, willing to walk away. And we had talked about it. Josh, you want to tell it to me? Say it to me.
Yeah. Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. So in this case, not having the knowledge, not seeing the blind spots prevented Chad from being in a bad spot. And a bad spot is a 6-figure loss and a soul-sucking deal. So Chad, all right, let's talk about what the holes in those deals were, what the blind spots, and then really I want to dive into the opportunity of the deal you did close on it, and that one's an exciting one.
Yeah. So the 32 unit, like when we got it under contract, it looked like a great deal, and I scheduled a coach. So as soon as I get something under contract, I leverage the coach, and I schedule a call with him, and I pitch him the deal. And then I want to see what holes he pokes in it, because he's done so many deals. I'm going to leverage his experience. Right. And he was able to see things that I didn't see. And, he was looking at the rent rolls, and he was like, he saw something that the story didn't make sense, because that the financials of a property, they tell a story. Right. And as a newbie, you don't know how to read that story. But a guy like Gino, he can look at that and he can see the story that the property is telling. And that's what Bill was able to do. And he says, have you done a lease audit? And I said, no, I didn't. I haven't done a lease audit yet. And he goes, I would do that lease audit. And through the lease audit, we found out that the rents were they were doing weekly corporate rentals, and they were not monthly leases. And the seller didn't tell us that. So
wow,
that's a big one right there.
Big
yeah.
One right
So, we're underwriting the deal, and we're assuming everybody's on, these are monthly leases that people are on, and they weren't. And he saw the volatility in the income that I didn't recognize. Right. And I mean, we had to retrade the deal. That was a retradable offense. We didn't know that when we put it under contract, and we ended up, trying to retrade and walked away from it. And thank God we did. It was huge. And then the other deal, they wanted us to buy without looking at the other units. So we were able to look at 2 of the units, and it was a phenomenal price on 18 units. It was like $35 a door. And we weren't able to look at the other 16 units. And Bill said, he goes, I wouldn't do that. I would not do that deal. And I ended up like not doing that deal. And I had a friend that was able to say, I had another wholesaler that ended up putting that deal under contract and doing more due diligence. And the other units were just absolutely trashed. And most of them were vacant, and they were saying they weren't vacant. So Bill told me to walk away from that deal too. And it was just two deals that could have just, when you're getting started, like something like that could bury you. Right. And, eventually I would have climbed out, but either one of those deals would have absolutely buried me and probably put me 2 years behind where I could be.
So right. This is important because Chad's gone through 2 deals, through 2 heartbreaks. He's gotten 2 deals. He thought he had nirvana. Finally, I found a deal, and he's only been doing this for 3 months. So it's amazing that he's gotten all his traction. Because from what I heard, he's underwriting deals on the weekends. He's doing property tours on the weekends. He's actually underwriting deals at nighttime. He's spending time on his education, because that's a big component of it. Watching the videos, coming to the boot camps, coming to MM3, network with individuals, not watching CNN and not watching football on the weekends, right? He's choosing to allocate his time. This is important, everybody, because these are life skills that we aren't taught. So the third deal, when you get the third deal, are you like, I don't know, is this going to work, or is this just another fairyland? Bill's going to get this deal and he's going to poke even more holes in this. How'd you feel about the third one?
So the third deal, I had underwritten enough. I mean, this was probably, when you talk underwriting in the last, that last 6 months, I had underwritten close to 100 deals. So I knew when this thing came across my desk that it was a good deal. And the way that I got it, you didn't ask the question, but I'm going to tell you, is the moral of the story is like, tell people what you do.
Oh, yes.
The way that I got this deal was, it was off market. It was from a wholesaler that I had done like some single family deals with and knew in the single family space. And I had told him what I was doing. I was like, hey, I'm really getting into the apartments, and he got a 14 unit apartment complex and didn't know what to do with it. And he was like, hey, Chad, you told me you were doing the apartments. And I looked at the deal. And I was like, this is a great deal. So the moral of that story is like, make sure you're telling people what you do. Right. Don't keep it to yourself, because it can lead to, you never know what it's going to lead to. And,
Chad, I'd like to say, tell the right people what you do. If you have a hater around you, don't tell the hater, because to them, real estate's risky. And most haters they've never done a deal before. So they don't even know that real estate's risky, or they've done that one Chad King deal where they lost $100,000 because they weren't educated. They weren't surrounded by like-minded people. So anyone in the space, you're talking to a banker, a broker, someone who's an investor, anybody out there, just go out there, create a credibility book and spread the word.
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And the credibility book has done wonders for me already. So I just definitely tell people what you do. And then, so we talked about, this deal, I knew it was good. Do you guys want to get into the numbers on it, or?
Let's take the dive. Yeah.
Let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. And on the other side, we're going to dive into this deal.
Gino, I know a lot of our listeners are wanting to take their multifamily investing business to the next level. I know that you've been hard at work helping Jake and Gino students do just that using our framework. Can you explain to the listeners how they can get our help?
Guys, we've been hard at work growing our community of like-minded investors, and the results of our members has been nothing short of incredible. We're looking to grow this amazing group. What we're looking for is those who want to follow our proprietary framework that we've created: buy right, manage right, and finance right. Leverage our connections, education, and mentorship as ways to take your business to the next level.
So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become a part of our amazing community, apply to work with us at jakeandgino.com/apply.
Okay, we are back. We're going to dive into the weeds on this one. I can see Josh. Josh is all happy about this one. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, so the deal is 14 units. You guys are going to probably laugh when I tell you about how we got the financing and all this stuff, because it was we took some chances, and they were calculated risks that we took. But the deal, we had it under contract for $864. We walked the property, found out there was some drainage issues and some door frames that needed to be replaced. Ended up getting an $80,000 price reduction on this thing.
How much?
We got it down $80,000.
And that's probably from your education, right?
That's correct.
So whatever you paid on your education, you've already saved $100,000 from a bad deal. You've already saved $80,000 in due diligence. To my calculation, I'm not great at math, but that sounds like $180,000 that you've saved. That's on the front end. So I'm sorry, continue with that. That's amazing. $80,000 bucks.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we got a price reduction on the thing. It's a 2012 built asset. So the thing is relatively new. It's great.
Yes.
The owner had an investment opportunity that he needed to make by the end of the year. So he was a motivated seller, and we love motivated sellers.
Yes.
Love them. So we got it under contract for $784,000. Okay. It appraised for $950K. We did the appraisal before the closing. We closed on it. Here's the funny part. So we really didn't have enough liquid capital. I had just put money into a deal. I just put $100,000 into a passive investment deal for some apartments in Jacksonville. So I didn't have the liquid capital to close on this. So we had to get resourceful, right? But we wanted to do the deal. And to the listeners out there, like, figure out a way to get it done. If the deal is good, you can figure out a way to get the deal done, right? Don't give up on it just because you don't have the liquid capital. And for those getting started, if you don't have that money, that should not stop you from going out and doing deals, right? The community can fund them. Like, there's so many resources out there. And if you have that resourcefulness, you'll be able to get them done. So it appraised for $950. We're purchasing it for $784,000. We got a hard money loan to buy it at 1% and 12% interest. Very risky, but we closed on it with a hard money loan, and they funded $745,000 on November 6th. So we had to bring $42,000 to the table. So we closed this deal with $42,000. The reason we closed on it with hard money, don't recommend doing that. Bill Ham actually said, I don't know, Chad, but I said, Bill, this is a calculated risk. We had a refi scheduled for 2 weeks after the closing for community debt, and it was no seasoning period. So the bank actually was going to fund 80% of the loan to value, but they wouldn't do that on the purchase. They would only do it if we own the asset, and they did it with no seasoning period. We had to talk to a lot of banks to get that deal. Most banks have a 12-month seasoning period.
And so that's something you learned through the coaching also, correct?
Yep.
So that one strategy made you get the deal, and the education also saved you upwards of almost $200,000. So that's freaking amazing. That is awesome.
Yeah. So then 2 weeks after we closed on it with hard money, we brought $42K to the table, and they funded $745. 2 weeks later, the Franklin Synergy, the bank that we have the note with now, funded $760. So it's technically a cash out refi because we got approximately $15,000 back, but they funded $760,000. So we have virtually no cash in the deal. We have about $25,000 in the deal, and we got a note at 5.125% interest on it on a 20-year AM. And we're just going to hold the thing, right? It's just going to let the tenants pay down the debt. We're pretty highly leveraged, but that's fine because we don't need a big cash on cash. We don't have any cash in the deal. So it's not like we didn't buy this for the cash flow. We bought this thing for the long-term hold. And then as well as, we did a cost segregation study with Boomer, and, wiped out our tax bill for the year because of the accelerated depreciation that we took at the end of last year.
Did you know about cost segregation before the education, or was that something on your radar? Or is that something that you learned through the education?
Number one, I networked with Boomer through the group. I met him at a money mixer in Knoxville. We did the money mixer in Knoxville. I sat next to Boomer on the bus, and that's how I met Boomer, who did our cost seg study. I had known about cost segregation and the phantom income from depreciation just from reading Robert Kiyosaki books, but to actually put it to the pavement, I would not have been able to do it without the community, actually implementing that cost seg and figuring it all out.
So Chad, some of the things that are amazing about this deal is it's a 20-year amortization right now. in a couple of years, if you'd like to refinance this thing, it might go to agency because your loan might go about $1 million because of the asset appreciation. But even if it doesn't, you can refinance this to a community bank, possibly get a lower interest rate. If you push it out to a 25-year amortization, your cash flow is going to be even greater. But for the time being, you're paying down the principal. You've got cost segregation. The property probably will appreciate. You've gotten the credibility of doing a deal. I mean, the list goes on and on and on from one thing. I mean, it's just amazing how that one deal, it only takes one. And now in Chad's physiology, he knows that multifamily is the right way to go. And I love that transactions pay the bills and equity creates wealth. Now that he's seen it and he's tasted it. And I love the fact that you could get a $900,000 asset under contract with $42,000. The amount of leverage there is just amazing. How many asset classes can you do that with? So I'm going to recap this. Why multifamily? Number one, you have appreciation on the asset. Number two, you have amazing tax benefits. Number three, you have the cash flow from the property. Number four, you're building a business and you're able to scale. He's got all those units in one location, so it's easier for him to manage it. I mean, the list goes on and on. Josh, what else do you see from the deal that I've missed? Because I'm excited. I'm trying to contain my excitement here, but what a freaking great deal.
Tenant paying down the mortgage. I mean, that's obviously a huge profit center as well. You know, real estate from a tax perspective is a appreciating asset. And so like you talked about the benefits there, but from a value standpoint, it's appreciating. They're not making any more land. It's a basic human need. This is a good place to be. And so I'm really excited about that. And real quick, we want to dive into some, Gino, go ahead.
No, what I wanted to ask Chad was, if you're out there and you're seeing investors or especially wholesalers who are doing really well, single family home buy, fixer and flippers, what would you say to them? How is the best way for them to get into multifamily? What would you say to them? This is what you need. These are the next action steps that you need to take because you're doing great. Transactions are great. But as we know, money's fake. There's inflation. We didn't talk about how your apartment is going to appreciate in value and how the rents are going to appreciate and go up because maintenance techs and all, minimum wage goes from $10 to $11 to $12. It's going to be baked into the rents. Everything goes up. Rents are going to be going up. So what would you say to the average person who's out there, who's doing pretty well in wholesaling or even single family home, or even someone who's got a job at Xerox like you did? What would you say to them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the way that I describe it is like you have to have a long-term strategy because you can be the best wholesaler, the best flipper in the marketplace, and you can do 168 deals, but that clock, that calendar flips and you just got to go do another 168 or no, your family doesn't eat. So I would just there has to be a long-term strategy. And for the wholesalers and the flippers and the people that are in real estate or that have a W-2 job and are making money, that's great. You need to be able to make money.
Yes.
And then you need to be able to keep money. Okay. So figure out where your surplus is. Is it money? Is it time? And figure out what your surplus is, right? If you're flipping and you're doing wholesaling and you're making money, right? That's your surplus. Then you need to leverage that to go do deals, but have a long-term strategy because Gino said it, transactions don't create wealth, equity does. And, a lot of people get caught up in that hamster wheel in transaction land. And it's a dangerous wheel to get caught in because you look up in 10 years and it's like, you just got to still go out and flip houses.
Mm-hmm.
So I was fortunate to recognize that very early on that I did not want to live in transaction land and I have to start building, the asset column, right? Build the asset column.
Mm-hmm.
Don't buy liabilities. A lot of people, that's one of the other big epidemics is the financial literacy of, what people actually understand as an asset and what's a liability. Most people think their home is an asset and cars they're not, right? So understand what are assets, get the education, start educating yourself for that person that's in the W-2 job, for that person that's, in the real estate space, or maybe they're a real estate agent working for commissions. That's fine. That's great to have a vehicle to make money. Now you need to understand how to use that money to grow and multiply and create wealth for yourself. And for me, not everybody can just take the leap from, corporate world and get into real estate right away. Like I did. It was a very aggressive move to make. And I don't recommend it, for everybody. You have to be in the right position in life. But that being said, had I stayed at Xerox, I think I would have eventually caught on that I need to develop a long-term wealth strategy and figure out how to make money, figure out how to keep money, and then figure out how to multiply money. And that's where the wealthy people are, and that multiplication.
We can get the 3-step framework that we're creating for the Wheel of Our Profits Youth Academy. I love that. It's save right, invest right, and then ultimately donate right. That's really important. And that's what I think it really comes down to. You have to save the money. We're not saying out here that you don't need to make money. You need to save your capital or your time, like you said, and then invest it properly, invest it into yourself, and then invest it into these cash flowing assets.
Yeah. And I would say, when you're saving money, you got to realize that money sitting in a bank account is losing money. So when you're saving money, you need to don't save to save to, like Gino said, save to invest in yourself first, then your business, and then in assets.
Josh, he's preaching to the choir, because when you're saving for an event like retirement, or you're saving for your kid's college, the problem is that money is gone. It got, like, now that my daughter is graduating college, if I had saved money in a 529 or some kind of savings account, that money's gone. But since I have an asset that pays me every month, when she's gone with college, my son Mike is up next, and guess what? That asset's paying for him, and it's depreciating. It's appreciating in value. I'm getting the tax write-offs. It's appreciating in value. So can you see the difference? And it's all funded by debt. It's funded. Don't be afraid of the word debt. Business debt is fantastic. We want to slay the personal debt, but you want to lever your business to pay for your personal. And if you can make that paradigm shift and that mind shift, man, you're going to live a great life.
Man,
Absolutely.
oh man, this is powerful. All right, Chad, got some short answer questions for you here. What's your favorite book you've ever read, and why?
Extreme Ownership, Jocko Willink. I was going to say The Honeybee, but I didn't want to come off like a kiss ass.
Well, you know what? I agree with you. That's a great book. I mean, there's so many powerful books out there. The Honeybee is great. It's a nice, easy,
Honeybee's great.
short read. Yeah. And I think Chad, the reason why he likes it is because he's multifaceted. He's already got his wholesale business. How is he going to tie that into the multifamily? And now that he's got multifamily, all of a sudden, syndication is going to start popping up. He's like, I need investors to do these deals. And he's going to have the syndication, the asset management arm. And maybe he partners with somebody to help him property manage these deals. And I know Chad in the next 24 months is going to be kicking ass, and he's going to do his own podcast, and he's going to be writing his own books and his own media. So you can see the explosion, right? It starts with one crappy, how many units? 14 unit deal,
14,
right?
Yeah.
It starts with like us. It starts with a crappy 25 unit deal. We don't quit. We have the patience and the persistence, and we commit, and then we figure it out. And then ultimately 3 years later, Chad's going to be on stage, and he's going to be working with Jake and Gino. He's going to be a coach with us, and the whole 9 yards. That's how exciting it is, because you can feel the energy. Chad is a make it happen person. He lives the core values: people first, extreme ownership, growth mindset. That's what it's all about. That's how you become successful in business.
If you ain't growing, you're dying.
That's right.
Love that. All right. What about your best habit for success?
I would say my best habit for success is journaling. I journal every day. I journal before I go to bed. And when I say journal, like I have, I use the 10X planner. So I recommend you find a planner that works for you. But, I write my goals down every day. I have my critical tasks. I have my to-do list, and I have, my schedule is just so rigid. There's Jocko Willink is the author of Extreme Ownership. He has a saying that's discipline equals freedom. So I have a tremendous amount of discipline in my journaling, and I don't go to sleep without journaling my next day. And what that does is that I wake up, I don't have to think about anything. I just go and execute what I wrote down the night before. I spend 20 minutes. I just journal my day out, and I just wake up and execute it. And I know that if I do the critical tasks that I put down in my journal, the 5 to 6 critical tasks that I have every day, if I just do those things, that's going to move the needle for me. And then if it's 2:00, I'll go to the gym. I might go play 9 holes. Like, it's as long as you are disciplined, right? Then you can have the freedom. And I think journaling for me has been a life-changing, and I got to thank my wife for that.
Wow. Love it. All right. So this has been a really powerful episode. There are so many golden nuggets in there, and I want to go over a few, and I know Gino's going to add to it. So it's never a lack of resources, but a lack of resourcefulness. There are many examples, if you go back and listen to this, of Chad overcoming several types of adversity to get out there and make it happen. Another one, time is more valuable than money. Again, that's our most limited resource. You can't get any more of it. And then education times action equals results. I mean, Chad got educated, took massive action, putting in nights, weekends to make it happen. And another one is calculated risks. And when you're educated, actually education is the only thing that can lower the risk and maximize the upside. And then also you want to have money working for you. The good analogy here is if your friends, or let's say I'm out at home, right? And I want to make more friends. I'm not meeting friends, but if I go out, meet friends, you want your money to go out there and mingle and come back with more friends. That's the goal. Invest, let it go to come back with more. Another one is, it's not what you don't know or you know that you don't know that's dangerous, but it's what you don't know that you don't know. And this is where Chad was able to leverage a mentor. Shout out to the Bill Ham to make it happen and avoid those costly mistakes. Gino, what else can you add to this one?
The person with the gold writes the rules. And we glossed over that, but that's why I think multifamily is such a hot market. The government knows that they can't provide affordable housing. There's a lot of people out there wholesaling deals, and that's why the tax benefits aren't as plentiful. I don't think the government wants people out there, or they're not promoting people out there flipping homes. It's a great part of the segment of the economy, but when you look at the tax benefits that multifamily has, I think the government wants to stimulate that part. Of taxes is really only a way for the government to stimulate behaviors. They want multifamily investors to create these apartment communities, to create affordable living for tenants and residents. The government can't do that. So that's why that's really important. So always look at the tax code. Don't hate the tax code. The code is the code. Work it to your advantage. I think that we've hammered a lot of times transactions and equity. That's truly important. Be flexible, like Josh said. It's really important to be flexible. And I think one of the most important things is don't be afraid to invest in yourself. Don't be afraid to step outside the box. And if it's not multifamily, just work on personal development. Get a life coach out there. Start figuring about what your clarity is, because Chad's really clear on what he wants. He's got the hourglass behind him. He knows that the clock is ticking. He knows that he doesn't want to waste time on the couch watching football. And that's great for Chad. That may not be right for you, but at least focus. And that's important. I mean, focus on what you want. Don't focus on what you don't want, because focusing on what you want will actually expand that. So find out what you want to focus on, become clear on it. And the last thing, Josh, I really would tell everyone and challenge everyone out there to listen to the program again, to listen to this podcast again, because there's so many golden nuggets out there, and it will motivate you. And how old are you, Chad? You didn't mention how old you were.
27.
Okay. He's 27 years old. Can you imagine what he's going to be when he hits his 30th birthday? He will be financially free, without a doubt. I know he will be. And how many people out there can say that? Because most people don't even know what financial freedom is. Most people haven't planned. So I want Josh to get, Chad, how can people get in touch with you? Because they have to continue the journey. I mean, anyone calling you out there, anyone who wants to know more about Chad and how successful he was, and maybe, hey, Chad, how did you do goal setting? Hey, Chad, how did you structure your life? Hey, Chad, how do I start journaling? These are things that people in their 40s don't know how to do this, let alone people getting out of college. These are all skills that we need to learn. So it's important. So, Chad, how can the listeners get a hold of you?
Yeah. So my platform is Instagram that I like to be on. So I'm at Mr. Chad King on Instagram, all one word, Mr. Chad King. And then I'm Chad King on Facebook if you guys want to, give me a follow. And listen, I'm very early on in my journey, 14 units down. That's it. So I'm very transparent. I'm open. I'm honest. I'll tell you guys, I'm very humbled to be on the show with you guys. And I'm early on, but very directional. I know where I'm going. So happy to talk to anybody. I love giving back. When you get to the top, you got to reach back and pull someone else up. So if there's someone down there that's, a little bit lower than me, I love to help out, give advice where I can. And I'm always reaching up for mentors as well.
Guys, I want to thank Chad for being an amazing guest on Movers and Shakers and sharing his story. Now, if you want to be the next Movers and Shakers guest, email me, josh@jakeandgino.com. And until next week, let's make it a Movers and Shakers week. See you, everybody.
Thanks, Chad.
Bye, guys.